Hello to the Pioneer 5K. We have Connor Mullaly, our player of the year last year, versus Collin Bradley, with a kind of a spicy one here. Someone who doesn't. It's totally normal on our series to see him play decks and play a little bit of spicier ones when he's doing. And Connor Mullaly, someone who just plays stock best combo deck basically all the time in Pioneer. If it's green, it's that. If it's Lotus Field, it's this. It's a deck that he really loves and plays a lot of, and it's not uncommon to see him sort of playing this deck, especially in the past. I believe lost playing for the Mox actually with this deck before Magic Online, so one that he's very well known for.
Yeah, Connor basically is the combo guy. Do you happen to know who Connor lost to in the finals of that Mox?
Was it you?
It was.
Okay, nice. I was gonna say I knew that he played you at some point in that, but I wasn't sure who. Nice.
That was like the old school devotion deck. But yeah, Connor has been known to play a lot of combo decks in his day, and sporting the Lotus Field combo. We were talking about before we went live, we were talking about the combo, and you tried to explain it to me. I still don't understand it.
No.
Maybe we don't have enough time to go over it with Twitch chat, but I mean, maybe Connor can kind of show us if we get to that point.
I will try and quickly explain it right now, and I'll go into detail if we get to that point when the time comes, which we might be getting to because this matchup is typically pretty good game one for Connor. So Connor is not playing all of the wish cards like you normally see. So like instead of having a bunch of Feyya wishes and Dark Petition Mastermind's acquisitions, he instead has the card. Yes, this is the card Peer into the Abyss, which maybe we could get on screen, where a target player draws half their deck and loses half their life. In the past, players used this card to draw their whole deck and then find their wish cards and win. Will Kruger and Connor have sort of figured out that you can target your opponent enough and then they die. And so you don't have to have a wish condition in your deck. You can just keep making them deck themselves and like lose half their life. It involves a lot. If we get there, we get there. I want to go back to commentating and play-by-play. Just know Connor is not winning via normal means by even Lotus Field standards this weekend, as we do have an impulse here as he sort of sculpts his hand for that important turn 3 Lotus Field, which he doesn't have. He has like Thespian Sage and cast a Shimmer. Surprised to not see him just, play the Shimmer before doing it. Maybe he has an Arboreal Grazer to put a Lotus Field that found into play.
Well, you say that it's not normal means, but if Connor is the Lotus Field guy, does he get to determine what is stock in Lotus Field? So maybe moving forward, maybe this is stock.
It might become stock. We have to figure out who Lotus Field guy is. I'm going to argue, and this isn't even just, like from the past thing. I'd argue Joe Lissette is more of an NRG stock Lotus Field guy than Connor. I feel like Joe came to the RC, had a lot of really good tech, along with a lot of other really good players, and really helped move this deck forward. And one of the things that sort of Joe did that these players sort of adapted here as we put Annihilator Presence in the land is by moving away from all the wish cards and only having a few things that you can, are sort of these one of bullets for certain matchups in your sideboard, is they have a real sideboard. So there are cards like 2 Pithing Needle, 2 Depopulate, 2 Gargaroth. This you actually have plans instead of just wishing for one of. So I would argue Joe Lissette more decides who's stock than Connor, but that doesn't mean Connor can't get that title in time. And maybe if he can, let's say he wins the tournament today, I'll let him decide what's stock as, the populace.
That's fair. Yeah. Now going back to the matchup, you did kind of hark on this a little bit. This matchup is really rough for Collin. I know in game 1 situations, I've played a lot of this Enigmatic Fires deck. The deck really doesn't clock at all. Like there's really no situation where Collin can put enough pressure on Connor to end the game quickly. So it really comes down to what tutor targets that we have access to, because a card like Enigmatic Incarnation, what it does is it's kind of like a birthing pod-esque effect where you sacrifice an enchantment, search for a creature that has a mana value that's +1 of that enchantment's mana value. So for example, Collin is now playing Enigmatic, likely going to sacrifice a 2-mana card to go get a 3-mana creature. And looking at Collin's deck list, unfortunately for Collin, does not have the Archon of Emeria in the main deck. And that is one of the few cards that Collin would like to have here.
Yeah, and instead he's going to have to grab something else. Looks like it's going to be a Callous Blood Mage. This card has a lot of different options. It can make a bug, it can draw a card, it can exile a graveyard. Sort of just a card that you see players play because it answers so many different things and fits sort of nicely on the curve. Looks like Collin is just going to exile the graveyard there and try and make it so Connor has a little bit less of cards to play if he wants to jam a Lier.
Yeah, Lier, Bala Ged Recovery, that could, that might have some effect there. But yeah, more likely Lier. But yeah, I mean, just a really rough position. Connor's on tap with 2 Lotus Fields. We got the land out. So there's a very high likelihood that Connor is going to end the game this turn, and maybe, just maybe, for Twitch chat, we'll get to see that lovely combo.
Yeah, so you mentioned Bala Geds earlier being a card that can buy something back. That is true. However, because you have to cast Peer into the Abyss so many times to kill your opponent, you have to be careful with your Bala Ged recoveries because you only have so many of them. So this version of the deck lets you have a real sideboard, that lets you have less, quote unquote, junk in your deck. But it is something where, Connor's playing a Bala Ged here. If I remember correctly, I think you can use Bala Ged twice on the peers before, twice on non-peers before things get weird. So Connor, okay to sort of use that one here, but it's going to have a lot of time. Will Kruger, who commentated, our later rounds yesterday playing in the event today, he is sort of the innovator of this, and he would gladly tell you exactly sort of what happens here. Unfortunately, I am not Will Kruger, and I instead only sort of know from reading some stuff on the deck. So
yeah, that channel your inner Will Kruger here. We see, some stuff going on for Connor here, just generating some mana, untapping Lotus Field, cycling through his deck, really just looking for the Peer, I guess, because, well, I guess you need to have some amount of mana floating, I would imagine. So, has enough to cast Peer, but would like to try and find a Hidden Strings to generate some more mana. Looks like potentially going for a copy of Shimmer of Possibility. And do you see what Collin did? Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
We are just vibing. If I was Collin, I'd, go to the bathroom, maybe go check on a friend. I might start watching the other feature match to see what's going on. Yeah, there he goes. He's looking over. What's happening in that game? Anything good? No. Okay. We'll be there soon enough. Cast Shimmer of Possibilities. This is, just another impulse variant. Over the top 4, put 1 in the hand. Connor takes something.
Yeah, so really... Well, maybe we're changing it.
I think. It's random.
Okay. Got it.
Sure. That could come up.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Actually, the original wording of Impulse, because I actually own the Visions copies. The original copy of Impulse, the last line of text says "Shuffle your library afterwards." So it's very. you got to be a little bit careful there.
That's funny. All right, we're going to see Connor here taking a look at the actual Impulse. Just maybe he's taking this more as a sculpting turn and was, use the Bala Ged Recovery to pick up the Pore of the pages just because he was like, well, if I hit the right cards, I can, combo off from here. But just big sculpting his hand this turn. It looks like, he's going to let the mana float.
All right.
Collin proudly puts his arms up in the air. He's like, let's go. I get another turn.
You're on F6. Now, Collin does get another turn, but unclear what he can actually do with that extra turn. As we talked about, Collin's deck is really all about generating a ton of value off of these certain creatures. You think if you look through the creature base like Skyclave Apparition, Callous Blood Mage, you have Yorion to blink all that stuff, you have Ellerstorm to double up triggers. That's all nice, and you could draw a trillion cards against Lotus Field, but with no actual way to kill or no real way to put enough pressure on Connor before Connor gets fully set up, it's going to be really tough for Collin, especially without that main deck copy of Archon of Emeria.
Yeah, I think Collin's going to need to get something like a Titan of Industry into play ASAP. Make a Rhino, just like we saw win our Modern event here, and just start pounding in. Because if he doesn't and gives Connor infinite time, Connor will get out of it. Deputy Detention is legally a clock.
Get the blocker out of here, crack in there for 2. First Blood.
What was Deputy Detention this turn, Devin, if not Shock, to get this 2 points across?
I mean, 3 mana, 1/3 ETB, deal you 2. You got to clock them somehow.
That's right. And we do see Boseiju using the Lotus Field on the Enigmatic Fires here. That's going to go away. Collin's going to grab a land from the deck. That way we can't turn one of these Nylea's Presence into, just another random 3/3, another 3-mana card here. This is the thing for Connor, too, is, Connor spent a lot of time sort of spinning the wheel yesterday. He's got F6 again. He's tapped out. Connor, he knows that the only way he can really lose this game 1 from this spot is the random creatures sort of hitting him. And sort of, that's bad news. If you get the
swamp out, you got the swamp out, that means you're probably dead.
Yeah, we're going to cast, we're going to cycle a Vizier, get an untap here, have some mana floating. I believe Connor's deck still plays Emergent Ultimatum. I'm going to double check real quick here.
2 copies.
It does. Yeah. So, Connor has sort of set up his mana for that as well. So here it comes down. So now Connor's going to get to search his deck for 3 spells and let Collin choose 1. one will go back to the deck and not cast, and then Connor will cast the other two without spending their mana value. So there's a lot of different little piles Connor can do here. Typically, the most normal one is like you'll get like a Dark Petition, a Lier, and then like a Peer to the Abyss. He chose for Omniscience in this spot too. Omniscience is a pretty common one that just auto gets sent back because you don't want your opponent to have free spells. But Collin might be in a spot where he's just like, yeah, he's just like whatever.
I like it.
Yeah, save us all some time there. And yeah, Collin now knows that with the Abyss is there. But yeah, that's really exciting stuff there from Connor. And we're going to look over at Collin's sideboard here. I'm going to read it off to you now. We have 4 Rending Volley, 3 Mystical Dispute, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Temporary Lockdown, an Alpine Moon, a Yorion, which we saw in the Companion Zone, Archon of Miriam, Portable Hole. Devin, what do you like here?
So Collin gets a little bit more help in the post-board games. Obviously, does have quite a few dead cards, but the sideboard cards that Collin's going to be looking at is Archon of Emeria, Mystical Dispute, and Alpine Moon. Those are the ones that are slam dunks. You can also sometimes consider 1 or 2 copies of Rending Volley to be able to answer Lier at instant speed. Like if Connor sets up a line that is reliant on Lier and you have a volley, that is it's a rare situation, but it comes up. But you have enough dead stuff. Like Chain of the Rocks is basically a stone blank in this matchup. Leyland Binding, not that great. There's not a lot of permanence on Collin's side. You can't have it for Omniscience, but yeah, looking to trim on some of the removal, maybe some of the more value-oriented, less impactful bullet targets for Enigmatic, and wants to bring in the counter spells, the Archon, and the Alpine Moon.
That makes a lot of sense to me. You just got to get what you can get out here. Let's check out Connor's sideboard and see what we have going on over here. The old deck, because Connor actually has a sideboard now. This Lotus Field build, like we mentioned before, you get to have a real sideboard plan. Also, for its worth, Connor can win with that Lair, the Hydra you see in the mana base there. We have 3 Hope Tender, 2 Depopulate, 2 Elgargoth, 2 Natural State, 2 Pithy Needle, a Drumica, a Ritual Soot, a Sphinx of the Final Word, and Zakama, Primal Calamity.
I'm going to be honest with you, Mason. I don't really know much about Lotus Field. I kind of know vaguely how it works, but in terms of sideboarding, my guess is that this is like maybe you don't really need to go super fast with Hope Tender, but basically, from my understanding, is Hope Tender is really only for when you need to go fast, like against Monogreed or something like that. So maybe not want to go towards those. Gargaroth, probably not. Natural State could be okay at blowing up some enchantments, especially if there's a spot where Collin goes for like Enigmatic with only 1 enchantment in play, and you can Natural State the. I know you can't blow up Enigmatic because I think it's 3 or less, but you can blow up the other enchantment to stop the Enigmatic from getting into the Archon. So that could be interesting. But yeah, I don't think there's a ton here. But to be fair, Connor probably doesn't need a lot of help.
Yeah, so I think Connor is going to bring those Natural States just to hit the Rest in Peace and cards like that we talked about too, where just in case, because Connor needs to cast Peer into the Abyss so many times on average to win, he can get across for lethal with a huge Lair of the Hydra, but that requires a little bit of setup, like having a Lair in play ahead of time. Doesn't mean you can't do it. I know that Will Kruger, when he streams this deck some, he'll bring in cards like Zakama, etc. in spots like this where maybe they're going to have just graveyard hate. And he's just like, yeah, whatever. It's a 9/9. It kind of gets a job across. They cut all their creature removal. And so Zakama kind of goes the distance sometimes. So that's going to be interesting to see. Let's get deck down to the feature match area. Those players are probably done mulliganing about now.
Yeah, one thing that I hadn't considered as well was Rest in Peace at a Collin's sideboard. Normally, Rest in Peace not the best against Lotus Field because they can usually kill with Approach of the Second Sun, which they can wish for, and it goes back into the deck and you cast it again. But specifically against Connor's setup, the fact that you mentioned he has to cast Peer into the Abyss and then Bala Ged Recovery it back, Rest in Peace actually has the potential to break up the combo.
Yep. So it gets really weird really quick. I'm surprised Peer into the Abyss doesn't say exile this card when cast. It has like 6 lines of flavor text instead. Sort of crazy.
And I did get a look at Collin's hand. There is a Rest in Peace, so maybe aware of what's going on in terms of how the combo was set up from Connor. Didn't see a ton of lands. It looks like there was at least 2. I think I saw a Triumph and maybe a basic in Collin's hand. But yeah, it looks like a Rest in Peace. I saw a Tulsamir. Not exactly the card you want in your opening hand. But hey, it's 6 power for 5 mana.
Yeah, and this is the thing too, is the Lotus Field deck has a really hard time against pressure plus disruption. So you'll see things like Damping Sphere plus a Clock is like almost unbeatable for lots of draws. So you see the mono white deck do pretty well against Lotus Field too and things like that. Collin really lacks the pressure, so he can't afford to sideboard out any of the creatures because he's like, I only have so many that actually attack for anything. I need to put pressure on because I give Connor infinite time Rest in Peace won't win the game. He'll just Boseiju it.
Right.
So
Connor's on 6 here. Ideal opening hand for Connor. Just has, a couple lands, access to a Lotus Field. Like realistically, Connor wants to find Lotus Field, Thespian stage. Wants to get those into play as quickly as possible to set up the double Lotus Field line. And from there, just some cantrips, some card draw, and then eventually getting to that either the ultimatum. That's kind of the big end game, or Pier with some mana floating to cast a Hidden Strings or something like that. And then for Collin, ideally, does have the Rest in Peace. That's a decent turn 2 play. Probably Fable is Collin's best turn 3 play to help accelerate mana to get closer to the threats that can actually pressure Connor. And that's kind of what we're looking for here.
Makes a ton of sense to me. Also, Connor can go down to 4 pretty easily. If Connor has an Impulse, a Lotus Field, and 3 lands, that's like enough to get started. Obviously, that's not the ideal hand, but it's just a reminder that the Lotus Field deck goes down to 5, and at 5 is the only spot where it's like, all right, well, maybe it starts to be a problem here. 6s are cleanest day. So often you win so many excess cards, you don't often need every piece of the Buffalo in this deck.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the Lotus Field deck, from my experience, like you said, does mulligan pretty well. You're really just trying to find, as long as you get Lotus Field, the rest of your hand is, the deck has so many cantrips. You have a lot of, other things once you have Lotus Field in place. So that is really the most important card. And I think I remember seeing some, people who played it at the Pro Tour really just talked about how they just basically mulligan every single hand that doesn't have access to it.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if 3 cards is when you stop doing that. So yeah, we're going to see Connor here also played a Bala Ged Recovery as a land, pass the turn back to Collin. Probably has a handful, a lot of cantrips here. Bala Ged Recovery also one of those cards we can't lose too much access to, but Lotus Field does sacrifice the Bala Ged, so that'll let you get it back here. As we get a Wolfwillow Haven onto this Glasspool Mimic on the backside here for Collin. A lot of Zendikar double face cards showing up in play this game as Otawara was the draw for Connor, and we are going to see Sylvan Scrying to go. I'm going to take a guess and pick Lotus Field. It looks like Thespian Stage was the pickup. Connor already had Lotus Field. You got me. I'd argue that is Thespian Stage not Lotus Field, though, in its heart.
Basically, think of Thespian Stage as Lotus Field with Suspend 1. That's really what it is.
Whoa. I like where your head's on that one. As we are going to see Enigmatic get played here, and we might see this Wolfwillow Haven get jumped. They decide not to play Tulsimir this turn.
So we're going to go sacrifice the Haven. Now, I imagine
Archon?
you just get the Archon. Yeah, probably. That's easily your best 3. You're easily your best 3 here. Now, I guess maybe there is a consideration to not exposing it yet, but yeah, you're just going to get it.
Okay, I thought we had passed it already. That's why I said Archon, because I thought we already went past it. I was like, wait, I thought that's what we're grabbing. What are we doing? As we are going to see an impulse here from Connor. Connor really just sort of wanting land, stuff like that. Connor also, I don't know if he has Alpine Moon on his mind. These sideboards can be really different. It's also just a 1-up here for Collin. But if he plays the Lotus Field, sacks these 2 lands, and Collin plays Alpine Moon, names Lotus Field, Connor is going to be behind the 8 ball. We have a lands and back gamer. Get him. Creatures in front. Creatures in front. Them the rules.
We call this the Paulo rule.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. Only Paulo gets to do it because he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Allen's just an oat, one of the players of all time.
Just OAT. I like it.
Yeah. We're going to see here a slam in for 2.
All right. Now from here, I guess the question for Collin, and if you're in Collin's seat, how do I kill Connor as quickly as possible? So we do remember seeing the copy of Tulsimir, but doesn't have an enchantment to sacrifice if that was the play. Okay, so we're going to go towards Cleric. Now, my guess here, that can find Alpine Moon, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's going to find Alpine Moon, and that's going to name Lotus Field, I'd imagine. It looks like he may put Fable the Mirror Breaker to the top of his deck. Interesting. Maybe Collin already has Alpine Moon in hand and just wants to get Fires. It seems like Alpine Moon. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Just double checking. Probably a moment where it's just like it is Alpine Moon, but I'll take a second to think about it. I love when players do that. So often we have these ideas, and they're often right, but sometimes you're just missing really important. You see how far Connor has to grab because the lands are in front? That's all I'm saying.
Do Connor a favor. Come on.
Yeah. Connor is taking a little read ski poo. His lands are going to non-basics are going to enter tapped. That means Thespian Stage is going to take another turn. Not that Connor would probably copy the Lotus Field here, but anyways, we do see Island into Ritual of Soot to clear the pressure for Connor. Sort of a nice situation there, a little sideboard pivot for him.
Yeah, and that's, Connor realizing that basically the way that Collin wins this matchup is to deploy a bunch of hate bears. You sometimes see copies of Redain, Archon of Emeria. There's various other hate bears that the Enigmatic deck has access to. Connor recognizing that and therefore bringing in Ritual in a matchup where you wouldn't expect Ritual to be that good. Looking at, Collin's deck list, there's a bunch of enchantments, there's not that many creatures, but Connor recognizing his role in the matchup very, very well.
Yeah. I'm going to take a guess. We'll let you know if they name anything that isn't Lotus Field. Otherwise, we're going to guess Lotus Field is the name. As we do have,
no, actually, Stage was named.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So the reason you would do that is because if Connor already has access to 2 mana with the island and the Lotus Field, even if you name... Oh boy!
Oh, you can see in Collin, yeah. And I mentioned it. Sometimes you see the comments. Seems like Connor's an Elder Gargaroth there, and if Collin cut those leyline bindings because he thought they weren't going to be very helpful, Big Gargler here is going to let him know what's up. The green Baneslayer, if you would.
So I was going to say naming Stage because Lotus Field gives Connor access to green, so you can already activate Boseiju. This is certainly the punishment for not naming Lotus Field, though. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I do wonder if we got a little cute there because you have access to green no matter what you do, but you do sort of double stone rain them. But, Collin is the one here playing the event, and we're going to see a tap of 3 mana. And Fable the Mirror Breaker, we can make a Night of Autumn gain 4 here every turn for a couple turns, but Connor's going to be attacking for 6, and Collin's just going to concede. He's off it. He's like, I actually don't have a card. Well, oh, no. Okay. Oh, so what happened is that's Connor's token. That's what happened. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
I thought we were
saying,
like concession
thank you for using my token. Yeah, I was too. I was like, oh, Collin's just like, I can't beat this Gargaroth. In my head, I'm like, you can probably not beat this Gargaroth, but you definitely can beat the Gargaroth. This makes a lot more sense here. So yeah, now Collin does have 6 power in play. So Connor, if he moves, Collin looks like we're
What's
checking.
Happening? What did we miss?
Checking a little something with Rest in Peace here.
Judge. Oh, they're checking if a sacrifice Rest in Peace, does it go to the graveyard or is it exiled? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it goes to the graveyard.
I believe so too, but I honestly have no idea, nor do I attempt to be a judge. So I'm just going to let the judges do their thing. I have to wonder, though, if this is actually, do you have to sacrifice with Enigmatic? Can you not, no,
it's
just
a May.
keep it? It's a May? Okay.
Yeah.
I get that Collin's, thinking he needs to stabilize here, but I think, I don't know, I don't want to, put words into people's mouths for Chinchon plays too much, but I feel like he's freaking out and he doesn't need to be. He's just got 6 power in play. He can just trade with the Gargaroth.
Well, I'm thinking that maybe you can just get Deputy to get the Gargaroth out of the way, which sets you better up next turn. But yeah, it's close. You could also just let the Gargaroth hit you, let Connor draw a card, double block. That Connor probably can't blow out a double block in combat. There's not really, a ton of, I guess Otawara is probably the only thing that Connor could have there. But I don't know. It's pretty close. I think I like this because that also lets you develop the Fable, the Goblin token, which lets you get a clean treasure hit in. But yeah, and then we see a follow-up Pore that pages Collin really getting punished for not naming Lotus Field with that Alpine Moon.
Yeah, Collin. I wonder how much he's played the matchup before, too.
Yeah, maybe
that might be a thing too, where the Lotus Field decks changed a lot. Like we saw Peer into the Abyss, right? And so he might be used to maybe the stock version, and also this might be a situation where it hasn't got that much. Going to discard Thespian Stage, better known as City of Brass, thanks to Lotus Field. Looks like we're having a conversation with the judge about something. We might be getting a mana counter here to see where you're at. Sarah in the back there, our finalists in the Modern, coming by here. I think she was also competing in the Pioneer event, getting some points for the weekend. And it looks like we were supposed to untap the lands first, I think, before you discard or whatever. And
okay.
It's just whatever. I'm going to untap my 5-color land and my Lotus Field.
And we see an F6. Which is a tactical F6 because Collin does have 2 mana up. Could have a Boseiju here, but he's like, you know what? I don't really care. It's fine. I'll F6.
Yeah. Connor playing his free City of Brass thanks to Alpine Moon.
Yeah, Collin actually just fixed Connor's mana this game by playing the Alpine Moon.
Yeah.
Funny enough. I guess we had colored mana with the Lotus Field anyways, but yeah, just really, just kind of really, really got punished for taking that line by naming Stage. I'm kind of with you. I think I would generally always want to name Lotus Field there. Like you said, just the double stone rate is too good to pass up because you're going to give Connor green mana no matter what. Because either you name the stage and you let him have the Lotus Field, which he has green to use Boseiju, or you name the Lotus Field and he has green, off of the Lotus Field anyways. So yeah, really, Collin getting punished for that choice there.
Yeah, and Connor picks up the Boseiju. So if Connor wants it, the stage is going to be online. Collin tanking on his turn. You got the Fable of the Mirror Breaker Chapter 2 to get some rummaging on. Looks like he has Tulsamir and Moonblast Claire. We're going to discard both of those. Picking up 2 new cards. Connor being like, hey, you want to cut, friend?
And now we got to start thinking about the race. So we got 7 power in play. Connor's at 18. So you say attack for 7, put Connor to 11. Maybe Collin. If we do a look at a check for 4 drops here, because we can sacrifice the Fable this turn. So sometimes people play a Siege Rhino. Looking at Collin's deck list, I only see looks like just an Archon of Sun's Grace, which notably is only 3 power. So if you figure 7 here, put Connor to 11, sacrifice Fable, get 3 power. Next turn, that's 10, which is not 11. So, a little bit short for potentially presenting lethal next turn.
Yeah, we might see Collin pick up Yorion here, just if he doesn't have anything else to do. Just, sort of get that. And so if Connor presents something else, maybe we can answer it with, what some of our flickering stuff. Looks like Collin sort of thinking about maybe there's a life total discrepancy.
Okay. We're counting. Well, I'm not very good at math, so let's hope we can figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm not the math guy.
I'm really curious about what they are counting.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Oh, maybe Collin's doing finger math on if he can die next turn, whether he needs to tap out and do something. So he's like, okay, you're going to hidden strings, untap here, float 2, and see if he can actually die, figuring out if he needs to do something this turn or not. Because Collin does have cards like Boseiju, so he can blow up Thespian Sage and goes for it. So he's going to cycle the Triumph here and try and get a new card. Makes a lot of sense there, sort of just thinking through what Connor can be doing.
Yeah, and again, if we look at Collin's tutor targets, there's not really a lot of help here because that, the Archon of Emiria is already down, and there's not really a ton else that he can grab here that has any effect. Like I'm trying to come up with something.
Oh, so we cast Fire's Invention. We can turn this into something. Do we have like Kenrith?
We have Kenrith, Elishnorn, Tulsamir are the 5s. So we could get a Kenrith here. And that will likely threaten lethal next turn, especially because you can go, pick up Yorion, cast it for free, activate Kenrith to give haste. So that very likely will present a lethal attack. And I think Connor kind of assumes that he only has 1 more turn anyways.
Yeah. Connor knows he's sort of under the gun. Oh, excuse me. Under the proverbial gun. Maybe the reason Collin's having some issues on figuring out what to name and stuff is all the lands are in the way. He just can't see Connor's mouth. Maybe he didn't know Connor had Lotus Field.
Yeah, that's true. The lands are blocking his peripheral view.
Yeah. He's assumed the gamer position too, so the lands are going to be in the way. Looks like.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that one. That's Cavalier of Dawn, which I don't think blows up lands. Yeah, not.
I don't think it does either. Can it blow up your own thing? Can he turn like a Fable into a 3/3?
He could.
Okay.
Yeah, it does blow up your own thing.
I mean, that's something. I think Kenrith would be stronger because Kenrith also can give +1/+1 counters, but.
And haste the Yorion.
Yeah. Well, we had to lose the fire, so we couldn't cast the Yorion, but yes.
Oh, true. Yeah, we had to psych the fires. Good point. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this deck is a little weird sometimes. Also, with the lands in front, too, you're probably jarred, dazed, and confused.
Yeah.
We haven't anyone stop him.
I wouldn't be able to know what's going on if my opponent had lands in their front. I couldn't read any of their cards.
Yeah.
I can't see that far.
I can't read in general, so I actually need to see the art on the cards. Lands are color coordinated, so I know what they do. And then the cards, I gotta see them in pretty pictures. So I hate all the secret layers.
Oh, we haven't had to play the Triumph game. Probably not going to play the Triumph game that much in Pioneer, but.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. This deck and our last deck both played a bunch of Triumph.
That is true.
So, unfortunately, we might not be able to get there. But yeah, I think that's I'm going to go with the Spars headquarters, I believe. Actually, that's Jetmir's Garden up front on top of the parent pile there.
Somebody
all right.
did it!
Let's go. Yeah, Collin smiles. He knows he got away with murder to have all that time. As we are going to untap this Vizier here.
We call that a W.
Yeah. Call me the villain if you must, but I'm doing what's right by the rules.
Oh, we got the lands out. I guess, yeah, the lands are coming out anyways because Connor knows he's dead next turn, so. All right.
We are going to see a copy and then hidden strings, the draw you need there.
Okay. Well, we still have to find a way to get rid of this Alpine Moon, right? I would imagine. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's possible to go off with only one Lotus Field.
So you need two, but we already got rid of it. We Boseiju the Alpine Moon.
Oh, he Boseiju. Okay. All right. My bad.
Yep.
I missed that.
Yeah. No, you're all good. We used it at the end of the last turn.
Okay.
We're going to Vizier here. We're in a very weird spot. Connor
should be chilling now.
If he finds Emergent Ultimatum, he should be good to go. A Pore over the Pages is probably his best sort of medium hit. Lier would be pretty good. He gets to redo some of these redraw effects, but I think the deck only plays about 2 Pore over the Pages these days. It isn't that full 4 of like it used to be. I know it varies from build to build. We are going to see Peer into the Abyss here. So Connor is going to target himself.
With 3 up. So still the ability to either Vizier or Hidden Strings to generate more mana.
Yeah, so it looks like Connor's counting all of the cards that we have been seen instead of counting his deck to make it quicker. And then they're going to take that number minus it from 60. So, for example, if Connor had 14 cards played, I'm not actually showing the number here, he would do 14 minus 60, which would be 46. Divided by 2 is 23. And that's how many cards he'll draw. So just saving a little bit of time instead of counting the whole deck and then counting it again.
Just, just casually take 23 cards and just put them right into your hand. No big deal.
In BD, as we're going to see cards. Yeah, it's going to probably find something. Connor does have 1 Lotus Field up. I will say this, though. There is a chance he whiffs. If a bunch of hidden strings and the Vizier Tumblers, the last one's left, are in the bottom, I don't think we have any mana floating.
Right, yeah. No Viziers, no hidden strings, I imagine. Well, I don't know if I don't think Connor's played a land yet, so he could maybe go like untap land, impulse into it or something like that. But
yeah, it looks like we do have this Lotus Field being tapped, and yeah, we have hidden strings. So worth mentioning that the stage we keep untapping, that is actually a Lotus Field that we made at the beginning of this turn and then untapped the hidden string. So Connor is sort of vibing from here. But Collin might be like, all right, man, I scooped the first game, but I need to know exactly how I'm going to die here because you have Peer into the Abyss. I'm not sure what's going on. And Connor will have to show us that unless Collin is like, I'd rather go hang out with the homies, which is a valid line.
Well, we did think he scooped earlier when he extended the hand. We thought he was just off it then. So,
yeah. And so it looks like Connor here is shortcutting with the hidden strings. Like, hey, I'm going to float a bunch of blue mana, then use 2 of it to untap. Connor looks to be working towards hard casting a Omniscience here, which will make all the spells he casts from his hand free.
Is Omniscience good when you have 25 cards in your hand?
It's pretty good. Looks like so Connor had 8 blue. I like that Connor was going to do 6 and 2, but decided to do 4 and 4 instead.
All right, what do we got? That is a petition. So
I wonder if Connor thought he had Omniscience in hand, but just hadn't actually drawn it. Yeah.
That's one way to it.
Yeah.
So 6, 9, 12, Omniscience 2. Well, I mean, mana floating doesn't matter at this point now that you've cast Omniscience, but.
So it actually, unfortunately, does because Omniscience is only spells from hand and Lier is cards in graveyard.
Oh, sure.
So you have to, you unfortunately have to keep tracking it. Yeah. So Connor's just showing Lier and Zakama. And so what's going to happen here is Connor's going to start doing the Peer bunch. I'm curious to see if we walk through or not. But like I mentioned before, yeah, so he's explaining it. And I'll try and explain it too. So he's going to Peer Collin, which is going to lose him half his life. And then he's going to lose him half his life. And then he's going to lose him half his life. And then he's going to die. So he goes from 8 to 4 to 2 to 1 to 0. So with the Liers and the Omniscience, it isn't much of a problem there. And Collin's going to lose. So congratulations to Connor moving on to 3-0 with the unique build of Lotus Field there, Devin. Did you have a fun time watching that wild one?
Well, now that you've explained the combo to me, see, I was having a great time up until they made Collin put his lands, back behind. And then I was kind of like, party's over. But yeah, that was a good match nonetheless. Yeah, really, really tough matchup for Collin. The Enigmatic deck does not have a ton of tools to fight against Lotus Field. Not surprised to see Connor take this one down.
Nice. We have a time shifted match, so we're going to jump into that right now to give you all some more magic. I believe it's Nicole Dubin is our backup match when we saw in our Players Championship last year along there with Connor. Nicole, actually one of Connor's only 2 losses to the Player Champion here against Simon Camero on Golgari Elves. Worth noting
Elves.
here. Yeah, the Golgari Elf deck has 4 Stain the Mind. Now, you might not know that card. It's essentially Necromentia with Convoke. So that's going to mean we're going to be able to name a card and remove all the copies here. If Nicole doesn't see that card coming and keeps in her normal creativity combo, she is going to lose the game, as we do see a Fire Prophecy on this elf here.
Well, and it's also funny too, because when you know your opponent, you presumably in post-board will know your opponent's playing elves, and my guesstimation is Nicole was going to recognize that the Hullbreaker Horror plan probably not the best against an opponent who's going super wide. You know, Hullbreaker Horror is a lot better if your opponent's playing more expensive spells or has playing 1 threat at a time. That's not what the Elves deck is doing. So there's a reasonable chance that Nicole will keep in the combo post board, and that will play right into, like you said, Simon's Stain the Minds.
Yeah, this is the new Lord Elf. I believe it is Elvish Visionary.
Leaf Crown Visionary.
Leaf Crown Visionary. Thank you. Yes.
Trust me, I've played quite a bit with this Elves deck. I know these cards like the back of my hand.
So how's this matchup? Have you played this one any?
This matchup stinks. Well, at least game 1, your opponent, like the creativity deck has, a turn 5 kill, which is really hard for you to interact with, and just a pile of red removal, 4 Fiery Impulse, 4 Fire Prophecy, and even stuff like Spikefield Hazard can kill your 1-drops. So this matchup is really tough game 1, especially if Nicole has just a reasonable draw. Post board, Simon is respecting this matchup with the Stain the Mind. So post board, it gets maybe a little bit better, but I think overall Simon is quite a bit behind here.
Yeah, we do see an Elvish War Master here to answer by make disappear into a Jasper Sentinel. Attack for 1. Nicole down to 19. Simon Camero got a Nykthos in play. A cool little RCQ one.
Yeah, we'll see if Simon has something like a collected company potentially. And Nicole does have a big score. That's pretty good for her.
Yeah, it looks like Simon maybe has Court of Calling here, holding up that as sort of the thing. And Nicole's going to draw 2, discard 1, and make 2 treasures.
Yeah, treasures. Pretty good combo with Indomitable Creativity. And for those of you in chat who have not seen this deck before, the Indomitable Creativity, you maybe have seen that in Modern, where it's trying to put Archon of Cruelty into play. This deck, it's doing it X equals 2, and it's trying to set up Worldspine Worm plus Xenagos, God of Revels. And then basically, Worldspine Worm is a 15/15 with trample. Xenagos, God of Revels, targets a creature in combat and gives it plus X. I think it pumps toughness too, where X is its power. Gives it haste, attack for 30 with trample and haste. Most people can't beat that.
Yep. This is a spot here where Nicole, wasn't completely out of the woods. If a Boseiju had hit one of those treasures, we only would have hit one thing here. It would have depended. If we hit Xenagos, that's not actually good enough to win the game. So Worldspine Worm, if it was hit, maybe could have attacked for 15 enough, but we're going to see a 30-30 trample haste here in just 1 second. And Simon's going to need something to stop that. And Simon's like, okay, they're in hand. You are getting handed. Let's go over to the sideboard though, because Simon is picking up the cards to concede here. Let's look over that, save us some timing into the next round. So Simon's sideboard is 4 Stain the Mind, 2 Phyrexian Invoker, 2 Scavenging Ooze, 2 Baleful Mastery, 2 Reclamation Sage, an Icon of Ancestry, Vivian, Montage Advocate, and Golgari Charm. What do you like here?
So definitely want those copies of Stain the Minds. After the Stain the Minds, I don't really think there's a ton else here. Revoker's not hitting much. Scavenging Ooze, not really. I guess you could argue that Nicole potentially has Dig Through Time, but that's not really the fight that you want to try and fight on. Reclamation Sage, not particularly good at blowing up treasures because Nicole's making treasures at instant speed with big score. So I guess you could maybe talk me into Baleful Mastery to technically prevent you from dying to the combo by blowing up the worm, but I don't think I'd like that. I think I would just go with the Stain the Minds and run it back.
Sounds good. Here, let's check out what Nicole Dubin's doing with her sideboard. You might have seen this deck win the Percher in the hand of Reed Duke. We have 3 Rending Volley, 2 Hullbreaker Horror, 2 Shark Typhoon, 2 Narset Reversal, 2 Negate, 2 Mystical Dispute, Aether Gust, and Disdainful Stroke.
We are looking at, let me just take a look. Okay, so we want, I don't really think there's a ton here. I know you had mentioned So it really all depends on, how well Nicole, does Nicole know that there are State in the Minds coming in from Simon's side of things? So if Nicole does know that, she's going to bring in the Hullbreaker Horrors most likely. If Nicole is unaware of that, then maybe she might resubmit the deck list as is. So it's really tough to say whether or not she actually knows what's going on. We'll get, State in the Mind's not a very played card in most of these decks, so tough to say. But yeah, I mean, if she wants to keep with the combo aspect, there's not really a ton here.
Yeah, I can't imagine her doing too much. I can maybe see a world where she cuts some card for a negate, because in her mind it's just like, yeah, they have some sideboard card for me. This probably stops it, and it stops Collected Company. But even then, I would not be surprised if Nicole sideboard. This is a time to match. We don't have to wait much longer. Let's go back down to the feature match area. That way we can see some more Magic the Gathering. If you're enjoying this stream, make sure to click the follow button here, as it does look like we are cutting Simon's deck.
Yep, Simon going to be in the play for game 2. Yeah, like I said, this is probably one of the worst pairings for Simon. Simon did come prepared with the copies of Stain the Mind, but Nick, you have to remember, Nicole also has a lot of counterspells post-board. Just even in general in game 1, there's the Make Disappears, potentially access to negates. So there's a lot of ways for Nicole to play this.
Yeah, we're looking like Simon's actually on a mold of 5, putting 2 lands in the bottom.
Got a 1-drop. Now, I would normally say that's not the 1-drop that you're looking for, but it does dodge Spikefield Hazard specifically. So, you know what that one is?
I guess Jasper Sentinel.
Jasper Sentinel. Yeah, there it is.
Then Elvish Warmaster. I've been known to Elves is my favorite deck in Legacy, Devin.
Oh, yeah. I think Legacy is probably a little too high power level to play something like a Jasper or Sentinel, right?
Blocks a Delver.
It do in fact block a Delver. That is a good point.
Keep that one to yourself there. Don't tell too many people about that. That's my tech.
I've looked at Elves decks recently. They're not even recognizable. They just look like Maverick decks that just happen to be labeled as Elves. I don't even know what's going on anymore. But anyways, back to the match here. We see a removal spell for the Warmaster on turn 2. I believe no third land for Simon. And then Nicole just developing some lands here.
And we do see Simon has the Stain in Mind in hand. Nicole, though, got a bunch of mana. Looks like she's actually thinking about maybe
Look at that Llanowar Elf. Just, can we appreciate that Llanowar Elf right there? Just gorgeous.
We definitely can. All righty.
So we're impulsing here, I believe, in response to the Llanowar Elf. Yeah, maybe trying to find a removal spell for the Jasper Sentinel.
And yeah.
See what we can find here. Nicole is taking her 4th turn. Going to deploy a Mutavault here, trying to see maybe, ideally for Nicole, she would have a copy of Big Score here to kind of curve into creativity like we saw last game. And yeah, Simon's still not playing some lands here. Now, Simon potentially could have a copy of Stain the Mind here if we did have a land number 3. But again, as we talked about, Nicole has quite a few counterspells for that. So we'll have to see what the fall looks like. A Dwinen's Elite, putting a little bit of pressure onto the battlefield. But Nicole doesn't really care too much about that if she has Big Score into creativity.
Yeah, that's not going to be something that she's really worried about. Now, if there's a land, Stain the Mind could be a problem.
Ooh, what are those tokens?
I think that was like a baseball player or something. They looked like baseball cards to me, but
it did, yeah.
Mickey Mantle. That's the line.
There's the Big Score. What are we discarding? Didn't quite get a glimpse of that. Looked like a blue card.
I think it's Dig Through Time, which is always a heartbreaker if they're discarding Dig Through Time.
You're in a rough spot if they're discarding Dig.
Yeah, that is not it.
All right, Red Source Creativity should be game over. Hypothetically, Nicole could potentially think about playing around Boseiju. You know, that is something that is crossing her mind. But let me take a look at the Elves deck. Do we even have Boseiju? I would imagine we do. Yeah, one
There's
Boseiju.
gotta be one, right?
Yeah, there's always one.
Yeah, welcome to Magic post Kamigawa.
But yeah, and I wonder if you're in Nicole's seat, you probably can afford to play around Boseiju, especially if you have the Mutavault in play as like the third thing to target. So you could potentially just play this a little bit slower. No need to rush a little bit. There's not a ton of pressure from Simon. So we're gonna go for a Fiery Impulse, and I think this is a chord for 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say if Nicole fights over this, she might lose to the Stay in the Mind. This quarter is just gonna grab another elf. We know that all that matters is having 5 things in play so we can cast Stain. Nicole might be thinking that the actual elves matter a little bit more than they do, but it could be in trouble.
Yeah. So Fiery Impulse going to resolve. Nicole is not going to fight over the chord. Looks like we have another Fiery Impulse. And I mean, we got the magic number of permanents in play for Simon. We'll have to see if Simon has a copy of Stain the Mind. I saw Collected Company, but only has access to 3 mana for that. So you have to imagine, and yep, tapping 5. Let's see if there's a counterspell from Nicole. We're taking a read. See if we got a counterspell. Yeah, we do have to make disappear. I think we might have lost Mason here, so
I'm here.
I will,
I'm good.
Do my best to do some solo commentary for you. It looks like we get a Riverglide pathway, and this is... Oh, you're back?
I'm back. I'm here. Do you see me?
I see you. I don't know if Jack can hear you, but I can see you. Oh, I think, well, Mason paused again. I'll keep doing my best here with the commentary. I hope the stream's still doing good. But looks like we have resolved the creativity, and I think Simon's just making sure that Nicole has the win condition. The creature's still in her deck, which I would have to imagine she does. But we will go through, make sure that we have everything. Looks like they might be pretty close to the bottom, given how far we've gone into the deck here. And like we talked about during sideboarding, I have to imagine Nicole likely kept the combo in, didn't bring in the Hullbreaker Horrors. So yeah, it looks like we will... there's got to be some creatures in the deck at some point. I mean, we're going through the entire deck, but yeah, there we go. Okay, there's the Worldspine, the Xenagos, and that is going to do it. Nicole wins that match 2-0, and we are going back to just me. I got nobody else on the other side. I don't know where Mason went, but we're back here. I take a look and see how many matches we got left. I don't think there's 7 matches left. So that was both of our matches for this round. That was a lot of fun. I believe we are going to be going to maybe a little bit of break. And yeah, so a little bit of break there. Like I said, there's 7 matches outstanding for this particular round. Hopefully by the time we get back, we get Mason back. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit next to a blank screen. But anyways, thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you back here in just a little bit for round number 4, I believe. Round number 4.